And I think that's working. Yes, everything's working. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I always start like that, going like, I don't know if it's on. Hello, everyone. My name is Fiona. I use she, her pronouns, and this is Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPGs, an accountability stream in which I do a read through of an RPG that's caught my eye, even from the bookshelf of doom or the Google Drive of mystery. I am a white woman with sort of mid-length, slightly longer, like blondie brown hair. I should get a haircut at some point. And I'm wearing a grey sort of sweater with white stripes across it. Not Go Faster stripes, unfortunately. Hope you're all doing well. First of all, Happy New Year if you're watching it on the day it comes out. If not, happy whatever day it is you're watching this. Morning, was it good afternoon, morning? No, good morning, afternoon, and evening. If I don't see you, good night. Was that the thing from Truman's Show? I can't remember. I hope you're all doing well, friends. I hope you all had a good festive break, or just general sort of couple of days where hopefully things weren't too stressful or anything like that, whether you spent it with friends and family or if you're on your own. It's all good. And I hope everyone got to play or got some nice new games if that's the sort of thing you're into. Yeah, I had a very quiet December, end of December. The first part of December was very busy, as people know I was away. And then we had a really good, we went down to my in-laws, and we had some days there, which was nice. And we came back on Christmas Day. And then we had, I'm just trying to think, and then we had a really nice quiet New Year's with some friends around here. And we played some board games, and I lost Codenames just as midnight struck. And that's a bad start of the year if you're losing Codenames. But it was really fun. It's nice to introduce board games. I actually, again, I don't talk about it that much. I do have quite a sizable collection of board games that I never get to play. I got really into board games just before the pandemic hit, and then I had all these board games physical, and I was like, oh, I can't play them because we need at least 3 people to play them. But we had some good time. We played Codenames. We played one of my favourite games is Monikers. I love Monikers. I think it's great, and it gets people silly and in the mood. And the other game we played was Nerds, which is like basically it's everyone plays solitaire all at the same time, and it's wild. I was terrible at it. I think it's first to 100, but then the weird counting system means that you also minus points. I was like minus 63 before the end of the game, so I was like, that's fine. It took me so long to remember the blooming rules for solitaire. Anyway, friends, let's get straight into it. We're going to look at our first TTRPG of 2015. Again, I went back through my big old Google Drive and had a look through, and I used the number generator, the random number generator. Whoa. And today we're going to look at a game called the Enclave, which is by Grasshopper Games, so I'm just looking at it here. And it is a storytelling game of isolation and resilience by Mark Silcox and illustrations by Ray Kochanski. So, I'll be honest, I have no idea what this game is or how it got into my collection, which is always exciting. It must have been recommended by someone a couple of years ago. It came out in 2017, according to the RPG Drive thing. I'll put another link to it in the chat here. And yeah, it's interesting. I feel like it's one of those games where, again, I know very little about it. And also I'd say the company or the publisher, Grasshopper Games, that sort of is, they've not done any other games since, so it feels like it was like a one and done to try. I can't find any information about the actual folks behind it. I believe that Mark Silcox was a university lecturer at Oklahoma, and maybe it was doing some sort of maybe game design with the students. I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't find anything quickly in the half an hour I had before this stream. So, with all that out of the way, let's just go diving straight into it, shall we? So first thing we're going to do, I'll go through the layout of what we're going to do for these streams. So roughly for an hour and a half, we're going to... Oh, hello, Evil Bread. Nice to have you back, my friend. And yeah, hello, Hogan. Sorry, I just, in my head, I was like, and Hogan's here. Excellent. So, so yeah, we're going to look through what this game is. We're going to look at the copy, the marketing copy about what sort of like advertise it as, and then we'll go into the actual PDF itself and where you can get it. A couple of things at the top of the stream. Number one, I am not a game designer. I run a lot of games and I read a lot of games, mostly for my own benefit, research, amusement, who knows, and also read them aloud as well. And you know, this was created about 8 years ago. So again, give or take, you know, like any sort of critique on this. Again, it's always critique, not criticism. So there you go. The second thing is, I've obviously not been sponsored by Grasshopper Games. I don't know if they exist anymore. I don't know if these people have just gone one and done. That's it. Goodbye. Which is absolutely fine as well. So yeah, coming at this completely fresh, hopefully with an unbiased opinion, you know, touch touch wood. And then finally, content warnings. I don't know what this is. It's got themes of isolation and resilience. So again, there could be themes of horror somewhere underneath that. But, you know, being on your own or being separated from the outside world. I think it has stuff about community in it from what I had a quick look at before. So if at any point you're just like, this is not for me, I'm going to take a step back from stream, that's absolutely fine. Not a problem. We hope you join for us for another stream as well. Enclave today, that diceless RPG. Yes, not the one you're thinking of, I don't think. Yeah, so I had a quick look, and there is an RPG called The Enclave, which you can get for Etsy. No, it's just called The Enclave, and if you look in the link, Evil Bread, you can see that it goes to a place called Grasshopper Games. It's a storytelling game. That's what it says here. Anyway, I'm going to go over to the actual Drive for RPG. Again, you can get it through the link in the description or in the chat that that you can go get it. So this is what it looks like. Let me move my... So that's what it looks like. That's the front page. So yeah, so not like the Enclave Kickstarter that comes up when you type in Enclave RPG. Yeah, so currently you can get this for just under £5. So what's that, $7 or something like that? You can also get a print-on-demand copy as well, which is very interesting. Yeah, different one. Yeah, exactly. Again, I'm not sure how it got into my collection, but it must have been recommended to me at some point, and I must have gone, sounds good. Yeah, I don't know exactly when I got it, but as always, we're going to read the. Well, first of all, we'll look at the image, the sort of. Move this back a little bit. So that is the cover of it. Again, what we see here is like a line drawing of a door, which has got lots of locks, and has got it's barred, and there's a keypad, and it says the Enclave with a little with like a little peephole over the L in Enclave, and it says at the bottom, a storytelling game of isolation and resilience by Mark Silcox, illustrations by Ray Kuchansky. So there you go. So it's a very simple line drawing stuff. I think again, giving that theme of like being isolated away from like outside and stuff like that. So yeah, interesting. It doesn't really give too much away either, but as always, as I say, it's nice to have the name of the book in it and your own names and credits on the front of it. So I'm a fan of that. I think it does that job very well. I actually think the image is quite good as well. Like it looks very well put together. Anyway, let's see what it says here in terms of. I'll zoom in a little bit because okay, there we go, a little bit better there, isn't it? Okay, so let's read the copy, shall we? All right, so the world is falling to pieces all around us. Well, happy 2025, everyone. But our community is safe inside these walls, thanks to the foresight of our wise leader. We build up our stores and bolster our defenses for as long as we can, in the hope that we can keep the dreaded outsiders permanently at bay. The Enclave is a collaborative story game. Over the course of an hour or two, you and your friends will construct a narrative about a community of heroic, or in brackets, or delusional, isolationists, who construct themselves an entrenched bastion against what they perceive to be the hostile forces of the outer world. As they bolster the defences of their outpost, they will encounter some unexpected misfortunes and betrayals, and fight bravely, or foolishly, against threats from the outsiders whose world they have abandoned until a final day of reckoning arrives. Okay, that's it. I think personally a good enough copy. I think it's given that little sort of line at the top there about like sort of like in action thing about some almost like you can hear this as like, you know, if it's the final day of reckoning, someone's saying this sort of thing. But it's explained exactly what it is. It's a collaborative story game. Storytelling game. Story game is interesting. So again, I assumed there is dice involved in this, but it might be diceless as well. It gives you a rough estimation of time, so an hour or two, and it's given like a very simple, like you're heroic or delusional isolationist. It's up to you what you pick, and then yeah, just sort of does the structure of the game. I think it's fine. I think it does a good enough job there. I will say the one discussion we have here is that the preview does not work and the description's a bit vague. Would like to know more about it. So yeah, I think that's maybe it's piqued my interest certainly, or it must have piqued my interest at some point. But we don't know anything about the mechanics or anything like that as well, which maybe we don't need to do. If it's a story game, maybe it's just more improvisation, or maybe it's more prompts or anything like that. So yeah, and as I said, it sort of came out in 2017, so roughly about 8 years ago. Yes, because it's 2025 now, and the page count is 50. So we've got about 50 pages in the PDF. Right. Well, with that out of the way, let's go and have a look. So obviously, first thing first, we always have a quick check. Yeah, unfortunately, as you know, again, not necessarily like I assume this, but no alt text on this document. But again, I don't know how. There's a couple of images that I looked through, but yeah, whether or not they're just sort of decorative images or if they explain what the mechanics are, we'll find out. Is this? Yeah, this whole thing is an image actually, so we can't even see the title or the credits. I think even that's the. I was gonna say that's an image there. So the Enclave logo. I think it's a good logo for sure. And a storytelling game of isolation and resilience. Yeah, copyright 2017, first printing 2017. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. All right. So, the world is falling to pieces all around us, but our community is safe inside these walls thanks to the foresight of our wise leader with a capital L there. So maybe it indicates that there's like positions that people can take in this game. We'll build up our stores and bolster our defenses for as long as we can, in the hope that we can keep the dreaded outsiders, and then capital O there for game term, permanently at bay. Okay, and then a table of contents. Let's zoom out a little bit. So, we've got getting started, rules, example of play, some further tips on gameplay, optional rules, resources, links, game materials, and then finally credits. So what, 8 chapters in total? Not too bad. They look fairly short as well. So obviously going through the game. So again, we'll go through as much as we can in the hour and a half we've got. Again, the whole point of this is to get like a sort of vibe of that, whether or not this game is interesting. What does it spark joy? Does it have mechanics that we could use in other games? And how quick is it to get to the table? I guess, and whether it's something that I personally, as someone who runs games, would like to do so. So we'll go through it as much as we can. We'll obviously get to getting started. Like I said, I don't really know much about it. We'll go through the rules, and then maybe we'll see what the links and resources are. Maybe they'll be out of date by this point. There's game materials as well. So it has everything in this book, it seems like. All right. No hyperlinks? Shame. I mean, it's 2017, so it doesn't surprise me, and if it's not been updated since then. So yeah, let's hold judgment on the hyperlink stuff, because again, there might be other things, maybe more dated things that we might need to be like, this should be updated. All right, so getting started. So to play the Enclave, you will need yourself plus 1 to 4 of your friends. So maximum of 5 people in this game. It's interesting. It could be a one. It's a one-on-one game. I always judge PDFs. No, me too. But sometimes you have to be a bit aware. Time is a thing. So we've got up to 5 people. We've got 2 6-sided dice, 1 8-sided dice, and 1 20-sided dice. So 2d6, 1d8, and 1d20. Pencils and 1 sheet of blank paper. So again, yeah, this will be probably optimized more for in-person play than online. Which again, depending on how difficult the sheets are, maybe it's going to be an easy thing to put on to online for remote play. We got an extra copy of the Legend of Oracles, which is these pages here. 1 or 2 disciple sheets, 1 voting sheet, 2 small tokens like poker chips per player, 1 sheet of alpha numerical stickers. What's alpha numerical? Is it just like, oh, interesting. Well, that didn't come with this book. You can always use Miro or Google Sheets. I agree. Don't worry, you can always use these things, but I think it's like, that's still on the GM or the facilitator to make those ahead of time. I'm thinking of anything that can happen quickly. That's why a lot of games, when they have like an additional thing for accessibility, we've already got them on Google Sheets, or we've already done it and it already filled, like even like Call of Cthulhu's character sheet, the pre-filled one, when you type in like, my stat is 50, and it goes, okay, half of that is 25, half of that is 12, to have all the like success, hard success, extreme success values put in automatically. I think that's great. Just quicker stuff like that just takes that extra barrier out from the table, from playing. Ooh, and then this rule book. So, sorry, I just keep zooming ahead. Can we see that? Let me just move it a little bit. Here we go. Let's put it there. Perfect. So, the Enclave is a collaborative story game. Over the course of an hour or two, you and your friends will construct a narrative about a community of heroic or delusional isolationists who construct for themselves an entrenched bastion against what they perceive to be the hostile forces of the outer world. As they bolster up their outpost, they will encounter unexpected misfortunes and betrayals, and fight bravely or foolishly against the threats from the outsiders whose world they have abandoned until a final day of reckoning arrives. All right. Oh, isn't that a great image? So that so what we have here is like a placeholder, a plate piece, as it were, and it's like it looks like a tree house up a tree, but there's like lots of spikes around it, indicating that somebody has like built like a HQ in like a dying tree from the ground. I quite like that. The colours, the sort of ink wash of it's quite good as well. Okay. So the phases of gameplay. Excuse me. Oh. A full game of the Enclave is carried out in 3 distinct phases. Phases even. We have the establishment phase, the ordeals phase, and the denouement. I don't get a phase at the end of that one, do I? So, in the establishment phase, players collectively decide upon the type of community they want to tell a story about, and draw a simple map of the Enclave to which the characters have retreated. Feels a little bit like the Quiet Year, doesn't it? The ordeals phase. Players will take turns to describe how the community fares in building and maintaining their enclave, and how they cope with steadily escalating challenges, both from within and from without. And then the denouement. Players will determine by ballot which of their number was the best storyteller during the ordeals phase. That individual will briefly decide the ultimate fate of the Enclave, along with that of the inhabitants and the greater cause for which they stood. Interesting, so it's like a GM-less game, but at the end you vote for the best GM, and they get to decide how everything comes down around them. Okay. Easy enough. So, the establishment phase, we're getting straight into it. To play the Enclave, you will need to find a bunch of sympathetic, imaginative friends who like to tell stories. The game works best when face-to-face around the table, but it's also well suited for online fora. Long car trips, or even play by email, so long as someone can be trusted to take minimal notes and report honestly on all the die rolls. On long car trips, can you imagine? That would be quite fun. I don't vote for that. Get out of the car. Given the pacing of the game and then the number of turns that will take during the ordeals phase, 5 players would be optimal, but a smaller number will also work fine as long as people are ready to think a bit more quickly on their feet. Okay. So first things first. The setup. The first thing you need to do is decide what kind of story you all want to tell together. The establishment table, that's later on in the book, will provide as a tool, or is provided as a tool to help you get started with this. But how will you choose to make of it? How you choose to make use of it, there we go, is entirely a matter of preference. Here are 4 suggestions listed in order of increasing degrees of player freedom. Oh, okay. So the first thing we have is roll the d20 3 times. If you roll the same number twice, roll it again. And look at the brief descriptions of the scenarios that correspond with each of the 3 numbers rolled on the table, and decide collectively which one of them sounds like the most fun to act out. And then we have everyone look over the table and choose a scenario that he or she would like to most use. Roll a d20 and figure out whose choice was close to the number rolled. Don't make a dice roll at all. Just choose one of the listed scenarios based on group consensus, or ignore the table entirely and just make your own scenario up from scratch, and have someone write a short description at the top of the sheet of blank paper. What's we got here? If you want to play an RPG game, travel by train, safety first. What's this then? The perfect voice to lurk with at work. Hello, Dead Truthers. Hello, my friend. Happy New Year. I hope you are well. Yes, we've just started, so you've got plenty of time. So hopefully some sort of accompaniment to your very, very important work. So option 1 is probably the easiest way to start for players who are new to the game, whereas option 2 might be preferable if players don't happen to know each other very well. For help with option 4, there is a list of some movies, novels, or other narratives that resemble the types of stories the Enclave is designed to tell on pages 30 to 31. Okay, I think this is an interesting thing. So what it's going to do, it's going to just go through all the rules all at once, and then it's going to show us the tables. I think that's what's going to happen, right? And that's fine. I just feel like I wish we just had the table next, so that I can look at it straight away. Because I'm going to go through all the rules, and then we're going to look at the setup tables and stuff like that. So that's the only thing I'd say. Also, roll a d20 3 times and then pick one. I guess that's fine. I mean, I think I would just get everyone to roll a d20. And then so no matter how many you've got, if it's just 2 of you, you get 2 choices. If there's 5 of you, you get 5 choices. And I think that's the only thing I'd say. But I guess it's just trying to be like, keep it simple, keep it safe, Alright, so that was the establishment and then mapping. So the next step of the establishment phase is to take a blank sheet of paper and draw a very simple open map of the territory that your community will be occupying. So say just an outer wall, for example for scenario 3, a rough floor plan for scenario 14, or a ring of trees for scenario 17. Interesting. Oh, okay, I'm looking forward to these scenario tables then. Every player should write in the names of 1 or 2 important locations within the Enclave, so for example like mess hall, dirt path, boardroom, etc. And be sure to leave plenty of space though, since you'll be adding quite a lot more information to the map during the ordeals phase. This reminds me a little bit of Sleepaway by J Dragon and Possum Creek Games, and that's what we first started up. We had that was all based at a summer camp, and we had a Miro board in the end. And we could draw where we wanted bits and pieces, like where this certain landmarks were, and people could add to it. And that was really fun, actually, really enjoyable. But that game was also made for in-person. So it's one of those things you're like, oh gosh, no. So we've got an example here. I wonder if I can show. Let's do 2 pictures. It finally works, a 2-page spread. So look at that. That's a really cute little actual drawing of a map, but I quite like that. Rather than maybe top down is what I was initially thinking of, but maybe you could just draw it like a sort of like a isometric sort of version of it as well, perhaps. I mean, that's maybe a bit more difficult, but hey, if you know illustrators, not talking to anyone necessarily in chat. So yeah, what we've got here, we've got at the bottom, so it's like a little island, and we've got stuff like makeshift hut, western forest, town square, leader's quarters, farm, and isolation chamber. So I guess for this, I'd think if you've got 5 people, maybe 1 important location, and when you get 3 or less, maybe 2, just to sort of fill it out a little bit more, perhaps. All right, let's go to. They even have an isolation chamber. Yeah, the isolationists have an isolation chamber. I assume that's their sort of maybe word for the brig, All right, so the final step of the establishment phase is to give each player a copy of the disciple sheet if there are 4 or more players, or 2 copies each if there are 3 or fewer players. It's fine to make as many photocopies or printouts as you need from this book. Disciples are the most important members of your community. The success or failure of presumably says the success or failure of our Enclave, there's a typo there, will depend largely, in brackets, perhaps completely, upon how well or badly they respond to a series of challenging ordeals. So for each disciple, roll a d6 to determine their attitude that character has towards the other members of the community. And the goals they have all come together to pursue. Then roll another d6 to determine your character's attitude towards outsiders. Circle each result on the loyalty table. I assume this will be on their character sheet. The disciple whose 2 dice rolls add up to the highest number will be the leader of the community, and mark this on his or her disciple sheet as a reminder. Interesting that it does say that his or her. Again, it's just something I've noticed with sort of obviously older books often usually default to using he or him pronouns. Here it's gone for the his or her straight away, rather than maybe the more gender neutral they. But I'm like, oh, that's interesting, for example. All the players roll a nat 1. Grumpy Enclave it is. That's true. But the minimum would be 2, right? Because you roll a 1 and then you roll another 1. So each player should fill in his or her disciple's background info. So each disciple should be given a thematically appropriate name. So for example, we've got Colonel Wilberforce Fortescue for Scenario 4, Felspar Blitz, Iteration 13 for Scenario 16. Ah, that sounds like a clone to me. And then finally, describe in no more than one sentence apiece who each of the disciples are and what led them to join the community. Make a note of all this information on the disciples' sheets and then place them somewhere where they are visible for everyone. So it could be, yeah, if you didn't have the disciple sheets or whatever, it depends on how big they are. Again, we'll see them in a second. Maybe you can have them on cue cards or index cards, you know. Depends on how much information you have to write down on it. Ooh. So then we've got another sort of bookplate piece here. It looks like the sign which says "Do not enter," but then the enter bit is sort of, it's got graffiti on it. It looks like a squid of some sort, and then it says "No hope." And you can see there's like lots of like vines and overgrown grass underneath with some rubbish. It looks to be like a love heart as well on one of these sort of like rods holding up the "Do not enter" sign, and it says H and T inside of it, and it looks like there's like a B and something like carved into it, like B and something, like almost like two lovers putting their names together on the other pole. Alright, and that's it for terms of setting up. That's pretty good. That's pretty quick. We go on to the ordeals phase. So at the beginning of the ordeals phase, every player receives one fortune token. There should also be an initial common pool of as many tokens as there are players. Yes, so everyone gets one, and then if you got 5, so in total there should be 10 tokens about. The player whose childhood home had the largest amount of open space around it takes the first turn. Oh, interesting. So it's, you know, did you live in the countryside? Did you live near a desert or something like that? Or very remotely, right? Ordeal and events and fortune tokens. So, at the start of each turn, the player rolls a single d8 and checks his or her result against the appropriate chart, so 1 to 5 on the ordeals table, which is shown later on. This table will reveal the next ordeal that the group will undergo. Some ordeals are actually positive events that help advance the cause that the community has gathered to pursue, whilst others are negative events or sources of potential conflict within the community. The only way that a player may change the result of his or her die roll is through the use of fortune tokens. The rules for using fortune tokens are as follows. So, if the ordeal just rolled on the table has not already occurred, then a player may either return 2 tokens to the common pool to add 1 to his or her dice roll, or acquire a fortune token from the pool by subtracting one from his or her dice pool. Oh, okay. So yeah, so you would take and make your own individual pools if you're taking from it, but you have to subtract a number from your roll. And that's only if it's not occurred already. If the ordeal just rolled on the table has already occurred, either the same number has been rolled on the chart or everything is quiet ordeal has already occurred during an earlier stage of the game, then a player may either return 1 token to the pool to add 1 dice roll or acquire 2 tokens from the pool to subtract 1 from the die roll. Oh, you gonna come and sit here, Fancy Alice? No? Come on. Come on. Yeah. Yeah, come sit down. There you go. Got a small cat on my lap now, so you might hear some purring. These rules are designed in this way to help avoid repetition in the game, as well as to make it more difficult to improve conditions for the Enclave, to make it more difficult to improve the conditions in the Enclave than it is to worsen them. Exactly. Okay. So then I'm guessing you roll then, right? Do you roll to succeed against them? I don't know. So after this, the player peels off the next sticker from the sticker sheet in alphabetical order and places it anywhere on the map. So for a 5-player game, the players will all go the way from A to Y during the ordeals phase. If there are 2, 3, or 4 players, the ordeal phase should stop when X sticker is reached so that everyone has the same amount of turns. Interesting. So that's, you can sort of place where your location is. Amazing. The chosen one. Lots of kitty emojis. Yeah, well, you say chosen one. It's because she doesn't want to go outside. So that's something I was meant to mention. It snowed here yesterday for the first time, like properly big snow. And Fancy Alice was like, "Oh, what is this? Outside? And I was like, do you want to go outside? And so she went out very briefly, a little adventure, and then was like, I do not like this outside. I was like, that's fine. So she's curling up for warmth, I think. Ordeals. So the player then proceeds to describe in no more than 2 to 3 minutes something that happened within the Enclave at the location just marked. A brief point form summary of the ordeal just described, along with any new names of locations or community members that are introduced via the description, as well as information about important changes to the lives of other characters, are recorded in point form on the game's Legend of Oh my god, this is such a long sentence. Hang on. Bloody hell. Yeah, that's a really long sentence, isn't it? So, a brief point form summary of the ordeal just described, along with any new names of locations or community members that are introduced via the description, are recorded in point form on the Legend of Ordeals win. Also, information about important changes to the lives of other characters are also recorded here as well. So basically, we record what happens on the Legend of Ordeals. Oh, okay. It's fine to make as many photocopies printouts as you need from this book. For groups who want to play the game multiple times, however, it might be more fun to store the legends as they produce in a single separate notebook. Some groups might even want to have each player write up their own contributions in the Legend of Ordeals, whilst others may prefer to nominate a single secretary for the group to keep things moving more quickly. Interesting. And the structure. So, the way that the Ordeals table is organised more or less necessitates that there will be more positive events early in the game and more annoyances, quarrels, and potential catastrophes later on. This does not mean that every story the game produces has to end in tragedy or disaster. Rather, it merely reflects the fact that at least some preliminary work is bound to get done in the Enclave before it attracts the hostile attention of the outsiders. It is also meant to be an acknowledgement of the ways in which communities of people who retire from society are more or less bound to undergo some internal tensions after the first flush of enthusiasm for their shared project. Of course, if the community inside the Enclave was delusional or misguided to begin with, then what seems like an impending disaster might turn out to be their salvation, or vice versa. Okay, I like that sort of game design thought about it. Was it that you said? Oh, hello, Brian. How are you, my friend? A summary, along with X, as well as Y, are recorded. That is a tough sentence. Thank you. Wasn't just my bad reading out skills, but nice to have you here, Brian. Each ordeal that the community undergoes must involve some change in the situation of one of the disciples created during the establishment phase. This can consist in a change of attitude towards the goals of the community. So, for example, it says Felspar Blitz has become convinced that he must never allow himself to be cloned again. I knew he was a clone. Some accident, illness, or misfortune. So Colonel Fortescue's dysentery was progressing at a pace. An act of heroism, a moment of betrayal, or anything else that might generate further conflict or drama later on in the story. I will say, so I'm going to go back a little bit, I think all those disciple names were more or less, yeah, they're a bit male-coded, aren't they? Oh, maybe not. Felspar, I think he said he didn't want to be cloned, didn't he? Yeah. Felspar Blitz has been convinced he was never allow himself to be cloned again. Would be nice to have a few other different kinds of genders, maybe, or presentations, and not necessarily just default male on that, for examples. No player may ever mention the same disciple other than the leader of the community for 2 of his turns in a row. It is important for the players to remember that no disciple is your character, as might be the case in the more traditional tabletop RPG. The point of the game is for everyone to contribute to telling the best story, not for each player to try to advance the interest of any one member of the community. The only other constraint upon how players describe ordeals are basic factual consistency, which the Legend of Ordeals can be used to help enforce. And should the possibility of continuing the story, in brackets, which the players should vote upon, if this should ever become less certain. Oh, it should become less than certain. Okay, hang on. Let me read that sentence again, because that's another long sentence, isn't it? So, the only other constraint upon how players describe ordeals are basic factual consistency and the possibility of continuing the story. And so the basic factual consistency, which the legend of ordeals can help enforce, so they can force that factual consistency, and then the possibility of continuing the game, which the players should vote on if this should ever become less than certain. Right, if you want to continue, vote on it. There we go. Cool. I think that this is the first attempt at an RPG for the author. That'll explain the long sentences. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not been updated since 2017, hasn't it? So, and they've only done one game so far. So, I think that probably is going, oh, how cool is this picture? So it's like a bunch of boards, and process sign says the end is nigh, all is lost. It's sort of been dumped in a pile. Quite like that. Yeah, and I say, no, still no alt text there. Oh. And then the denouement. So after the community has undergone its final ordeal, each player takes a voting slip and writes down the name of the player whom he or she thought made the best overall contribution to the story. The player who started the ordeals phase collects these votes and tallies them. Any ties are resolved by a die roll. The player who wins the vote then describes the ultimate fate of the community, the Enclave, and all the disciples. He or she places the Z sticker on the map where the last significant event of the story takes place, and makes a suitable record in the Legend of Ordeals. There is no constraints on how the denouement is described apart from factual accuracy and brevity. The player who delivers it should not be allowed to go on for any more than about 5 minutes. The point is not to introduce any important new events, characters, or plot twists, but rather to bring the story of the community to an end in some way that the earlier parts of the game have made to seem inevitable. How interesting! I now get the point of the stickers. I quite like that. They feel, again, I can imagine playing in person. That's very tactile. You get the sticker and you place it on, and you have if you have 5 people, then everyone gets 2 rounds. And then you have that, because it's 25. So everyone uses up to 25, which is Y sticker, and then that final person gets the last sticker. That feels quite tactile. That feels quite definite to put it down on that map. And then you get to keep the map afterwards as well. I guess with a Miro board or a Google whiteboard or something like that, again, you can type it. So it's not the same thing, but it still can be done easily enough. Interesting. So then I'm just going to go back to it. So then the fortune table, does it mean that you go up and down on the table? Is that what it means? To add 1 to the pool, or acquire 2 to subtract from the die roll. Presumably, interesting. I'm not entirely sure what this is. Maybe there's an example later on. Okay. So, BP Hertz, Brian says, so everyone is compelled to play more than one character. Interesting to contrast this with, for example, for the Queen, which is also a storytelling game, but its premise relies on one-to-one player character assignment. Yeah, and also, you don't have to play your characters. Other people you can choose, I think that's what it said, right? You could choose to somebody else's character. Let me see. Recording. As well as input to the other characters. It's fine to for groups. No, that's not it. Hang on. Sorry, I'm looking at this because I'm interested in this now. That's community. Proceed to describe what's happened. There we go. So new location or community members are introduced. For groups who want to play. Oh, it doesn't say, does it? I'd assume that you could almost like Good Society, you could play somebody else's character if they felt it would fit in with what that event was. Okay, so that's a... Oh, denouement game ends. Let me just... Whoop. And we're going to see this 2-page spread. Oh, look at that. That's a very cool map. Again, a sort of hand-drawn map of this idea of ring. It looks like space, right? And we've got stars and whatnot. We have a dock. We have a mysterious fissure or fracture. We've got the mess hall in the middle and the bridge. I quite like that. I hadn't thought of that. Again, I always think like, oh yes, it's going to be on Earth, but actually, if you're doing sci-fi, space station, an isolationist space station makes total sense here. That's pretty cool. All right, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So, the denouement, the game ends. So as soon as the player who has won the vote is finished, any other player with one or more votes tokens less can request that a change be made to the ending of the story. Oh, okay. If the player responsible for deciding upon the denouement agrees, then that change is made and recorded in the Legend of Oracles. Otherwise, the players can take a vote on which way things turn out. Once any conflicts that arise in this way have been resolved, the game has ended. Interesting. So there's a lot of voting and agreeing in this sort of story. Like, again, proper collaborative storytelling. And it's nice to be like, well, all these tokens are for something. Like, I've taken disadvantages of it. I want to make changes to how the story ends. That's quite interesting. All right, and then it goes on to an example of play. And we've got through quite a bit of it already. Might as well go through it, huh? It's been quite quick. So I think I want to see how that main mechanic works in terms of the tables. So maybe we'll do that. So I was just saying, I'll read this a little bit aloud anyway. So the following is a fictional description about how 4 players of the Enclave, so Lewis, Anna, Declan, and Shosana, might go through an establishment phase and the first few turns of an ordeal phase, then skips immediately ahead to the denouement. The story being told in this example is perhaps a tad more melodramatic than your story needs to be. The point of including it is to show one way in which the players are starting from an imaginative blank slate might slowly build up a shared vision of a type of human drama that this game was designed to produce. Okay. Oh wow. Lewis has copied and emailed the establishment table to the other 3 players the night before the game. Also, everyone better be doing their homework. Oh, Shosana. Okay. Thank you for that, Brian. I appreciate it. Shana. Nah. Oh, man. Already beginning of the year, and this year is the year of the mispronunciation for Fiona, as it is every year. When they go out his house over takeout, pizza, and beverages, each of them already has an idea of the type of story he or she would like to act out. I see. So you get to see the. Okay, so it's a little bit like Lines and Veils or Safety Session Zero to get vibes and stuff. Got the map. It goes on here. Let's see. Got the disciples as well. I'm not going to worry too much about it. So let's see about this ordeals thing. So Declan heals the A sticker and places it on the sheet of paper where the bridge on the spaceship is marked. An alarm sounds on the bridge whilst Captain Gory is at the controls. He quickly runs a diagnostic program and discovers that the fissure on the outside of the station, which has been attributed to an earlier collision with a meteorite, has been growing steadily over the past 2 hours. The ship's computer tells him that there are signs that the damage is caused by a small host of invasive nanites, which bears a telltale mark of having been manufactured by the dreaded Melon Man of Epsilon Ardani. The captain immediately radios the crew and solicits a volunteer to get into a spacesuit and repair the ship's station's hull. It looks as though they've discovered the problem just in time. And then beneath A on the Legends ordeal, or maybe does he? Ah, hang on, he's done it here, hasn't he? To begin, so he's already rolled what it is. Wait. Declan informs the crew that he grew up in an isolated farmhouse in the middle of Nebraska. Classic. And writes fissure on the station hull created by Melon Man Tech. The captain orders repairs to them. The group decides to go clockwise around the table. Shosana is on Declan's left, so she rolls a d8 and gets a 5. She puts the B sticker on the outer edge of the space wall. Private Mary Jane's footing slips on the outside of the station while she is repairing the breach, she says. She bumps her head on the outer wall and is briefly rendered unconscious. While the station's security system deploys to pull her back to safety, she has a bizarre dream of a future universe in which humanity and Meloman live in peace and cooperative harmony. And then under B, on the Legend of Oracles, they write, Private Gold has a concussion. And it keeps going round like that. Interesting. Okay. So I'm just looking here if there's any. So out of 5, this was a 2. Let's see. Okay, so next round on the table is Lewis, who rolls a 1d8 and gets a 7. He decides he wants to subtract 1 from his roll because he has an idea for adding a new character to the story. An ordeal 7 on the chart has not been undergone yet, so this entitles him to take only 1 extra fortune for himself from the common pool. Right, so it is related to like having that event happen. Interesting. Definitely an uncommon name. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Hogan. But it's also my bad for not actually attempting it right. Not Melon Men. Ah, I know, the dreaded Melon Men. I mean, I don't know, we've got engineer Uther Toblerone there, so... very melodramatic. It feels very Star Trek, doesn't it? Another 70 minutes pass. Okay, right, so yeah, so it is... Oh, well, there we go, there's the Melon Men there. Hang on, let me... Choose it. There we go. So yeah, we have like a 2-page spread of what looks like... More looks like courgette people, perhaps. Like monsters with spears, taking like a sort of like intimidating a person in a spacesuit on a spaceship, and there's a window where you can see sort of like presumably planets outside it. Okay, so that's interesting. So yeah, there's not much in terms of dice rolling. It is definitely more storytelling. You don't choose to succeed. You're working together. So I quite like that. More like Watermelon Men. Yes, there you go. There you go. And then the denouement. Okay, all right. It's very straightforward in terms of like setting up, etc. It's definitely more story game rather than RPG, I feel like, but I like it though. I can imagine it being really well. I can easily see people doing their own improvised like scenarios and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty good so far, I think. Don't have anything necessarily like, ooh, this is not very good or something. Oh, why have I zoomed in so close, Fiona? Who knows? All right. So let's keep on reading. So some further tips on gameplay. The story games are all about spontaneity, creative collaboration, and testing the limits of your imagination. At their best, there are probably no more exhilarating way of entertaining yourself with another group of people who share your tastes and sensibilities. But they do require a lot more thought and discipline than games like chess, Monopoly, or even the Dungeons & Dragons style RPGs, where most of the problems that arise during gameplay have a solution somewhere in the rules. Gosh, imagine being lumped in with those lot of chess, Monopoly, and the worst of those thought and discipline games of Dungeons & Dragons. The most important skills that don't always come naturally... the two most important skills that don't always come naturally to novice players are, first, sustaining the mood, and second, building on the ideas of others. That's true. That's why we do improv. A game that starts out as a tragedy or an adventure story that starts during the first few ordeals shouldn't become a laugh riot or a sentimental romance by the 15th, unless it has been the result of a slow, natural development of the narrative, or else the result of an explicit earlier consensus. Otherwise, when the game is over, players will quickly forget the story that they have told together. And one should always resist the temptation to introduce new characters, conflicts, or pieces of information about goings on at the Enclave when earlier ordeals have created cliffhangers or unrealised opportunities for character development. That is a very long sentence as well. Ooh. Whilst the occasional totally unforeseen plot twist or reversal can be fun, these should be introduced very sparingly, and what might seem dramatic will turn out to be merely chaotic. Now you see, this is the sort of thing which I understand what it's talking about, but that's the sort of thing you'd have a session 0 for, like, hey, are we open to any ideas, or should we just keep it? Or even having that pause, play, rewind, the sort of video safety tools. We go, hey, I'm feeling this, but I just want to check in with the table. So that's the stuff you use there for, rather than like, you should resist it. I think it's always good to talk about it. Yep, it looks like a storytelling game for 1 to 2 hours. Yeah, exactly. Shots fired. Okay, we've got some optional rules as well. Always love a game of optional rules. So, derangement and fantasy levels. So sometimes story games like the Enclave work better if the players establish a few extra ground rules where the narrative can go and can't go before play begins. In the Enclave, two things can be especially tricky to anticipate are how realistic or deluded the disciples are in their beliefs about the outside world and their own need to escape it, and how straightforward or bizarre the world that they actually live in is. This comes back to the improv. How fast can we go to what they call crazy town? 1 to 100 to chaotic, and you're like, I was just at an airport. So, you okay, fancy ass? So, to avoid unwanted plot twists or ambiguities arising from either of these two factors, the players might want to agree on a derangement level and or a fantasy level during the establishment phase. This might be accomplished by consulting the derangement and fantasy tables and either arriving at a group consensus or rolling a d6. This is interesting. We'll be interested to see how many levels are on those tables. I feel like that sort of thing, again, it comes in that safety stuff, and you could be like, what's the tone of the game? Is it default? They're just fine people? Is it they are deranged? Or are they not deranged? I feel like there's got to be maybe just some default options rather than just one big table. Shared fortunes. So for a bit more flexibility during the ordeals phase, players may be allowed to spend their fortune tokens to affect other players, as a mistake there, die rolls. This should only ever be done with the consensus of the player actually making the roll, however. Outsider's turn. Every 5 turns, each player rolls a d20. The player with the lowest roll briefly describes what has been happening outside of the Enclave whilst the events discussed during the past 5 turns have been taking place. I like that. That's quite good. It's like a Bastion's turn. The information provided is added to the legend of ordeals. No factual inconsistencies should be added during this extra turn, but whoever takes it should feel free to expose misconceptions that the members of the community might have about events or attitudes in the larger world. And then we've got the denouement, an alternative denouement. It is sometimes fun to play story games like the Enclave in front of an audience, whether it's a parent, a child, or a significant other who's come along to the gathering or a larger group who's watching the game as a whole, as though it's a piece of performance art. Unless it's like streamed to Twitch. After the ordeals phase, the players might choose to invite some volunteer from the audience who has watched the game from the beginning to contribute to the denouement, instead of voting for the best storyteller from within the group. I kind of like that. I kind of like having... Yeah, there's a thing in improv called... oh no, this is where I'm going to get it wrong. The Armando is a form, and it was devised because there was a member of an improv team who just wasn't very good in scenes, but they were very good at telling monologues. And what would happen was that they would tell a monologue at the beginning of the format, and then the other players would pull from that monologue and then create stories around it. It's like a reverse Armando, whereby you have these scenes, you have this bit, and then the person at the end is someone who hasn't taken part in it at all, and it just gives sort of the wrapping up thing. I quite like that. Brian says, my gut says it would be more interesting from a storytelling perspective to keep the question of how delusional the characters are unresolved until a good portion of the ordeals phase of the game has been completed. I agree. I think that's really good. But I think, again, that sort of thing should come into the session 0, right? So, hey, do we want to actually talk about it? Do we want to make it clear to everyone? Or should we just play to find out, Because then I think as long as people are on the same page where they're like, well, they're clearly delusional, and you're like, are they? So I think I agree. I think it would be more interesting, but I think you need to set that expectation. That's the option. It's like either they are, they aren't, or we'll play to find out, and just everyone selects that option rather than it coming up organically. Look at that! Oh, beautiful. So here we have another sort of isometric. That's not the word, is it? I can't remember. But like a area with a wall, and we've got a church, we've got a jail. There's another book plate sort of piece. Coven house, gallows, fence hole which has been boarded up, and a sentry box. There's some trees on the outside, but it's surrounded by this whole area, sort of surrounded by high walls with barbed wire. Okay. Resources. So the Enclave is designed to tell a very particular type of story about human beings who form tight-knit groups out of shared discomfort with some feature of the outside world. The ways in which such communities maintain their cohesiveness and integrity as the outside world threatens what they have built together have inspired many great storytellers over the centuries. Oh, another really long sentence. Here is a few examples from other media that might provide. Here are a few other examples from other media that might provide some stimulus, especially for ambitious players of the Enclave. Nice, some media touchstones is all good. So what we've got here, we've got the Siege of Krishnapur, which is an award-winning 1977 novel that tells the gripping story of Type 4 from the Establishment Table. It's about British settlers during the Indian Rebellion of 1857 who get cut off from the rest of the empire and have to fall back on their own resources to survive. It also shows how some larger ideas about human society It also shows how some larger ideas about human society that had their natural home within the British Empire are being tested during this historical period and perhaps found wanting. Again, that's the sort of thing where we'd have to just check in and make sure that people are okay to play that sort of thing. That could be quite interesting. But yeah, I want to make sure that everyone wants to be keen on that sort of thing. May's Fools is a very funny, politically astute French film made in the 1990s. It is a Type 8 story about a rural French aristocrats who have a hyperbolic reaction to the news of Paris uprisings of the 1868. It's probably the best model for any version of this game, which all the players' characters belong to the same family. Ooh, how fun! That could be quite fun. I like the idea, of an isolated manor house. There's another film recently that did that. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. John Huddle's 2014 film After Dark is about a classroom full of gifted philosophy students who talk their way through multiple versions of Type 12 story, each version involving a subtly different set of unknowns about what is left in the world outside the bunker. The film's plot gets convoluted by the end, but it is a fantastic dramatization of people actually doing something like playing this game. Brian says, I don't know any of these media references, but I can think... can think of the book of series that starts with Wool and made into his TV series Silo. Oh, I don't know that one, Brian. Interesting. What was I thinking? I can't. I just think Big Brother is what I was thinking. Maybe A Dead Set was the film I was thinking where the outsider got in. Silo is on Apple TV. Oh, I'll check it out. I appreciate it. Yeah, I haven't really heard of these ones either. Geoffrey Chaucer's Troilus and Chryseide is a long poem written in the Middle Ages that tells of a sad but beautiful Type 14 type story of two lovers struggling to remain faithful during the last days of Homer's Troy, right? Homeric Troy. There is probably no better description in Western literature of a community whose bonds of friendship are put to the test by the threat of invasion. The original Middle English is tough going for non-lit majors, but there is a terrific verse translation by Joseph Glasser available in mass market paperback. The Others. Oh yeah, I've seen that one. Yes. Oh, that's maybe what I was thinking of. The major Hollywood film from 2001, starring Nicole Kidman. It is an eerie, subtly acted, but occasionally quite horrific ghost story that may or may not be of Type 15, depending on how you view the ending. That's true. And then we have Children of the Sky. Remains one of the best examples of science fiction of Type 16 story. Most of the passengers in Helene's generation ship have gotten so out of touch with their mission that they've ceased to believe there's anything outside their vessel at all. The motley band of rebellious explorers who dare think differently are a long way from your standard well-groomed Hollywood-style team of heroes. And then finally, The Island of Dr. Monroe is a classic science fiction novel which tells Type 19 story about a deranged vivisectionist performing ghastly experimentations on humans and animals alike in his secluded island lair. It is a brilliantly imaginative and scary tale that was considerably ahead of its time in 1896, but is also practically begging to be parodied as well. Interesting. Yes, it's nice to have some examples of that, and it's nice that they're explained about why they fit into this game. So you should watch this because it's an example of this kind of story. I quite appreciate that. Okay. Oh, no, these links do work. So to learn more about story games like the Enclave, visit the following websites. I'm going to click and see. Yep. Let me through. That website is taking a while to load, so I'm going to assume it's not available. Indie RPG Awards. Let's try that one. Oh, that is it. Oh, gosh, that is so small. Update 2020. The Indie RPG Awards is currently on hiatus. Oh, that's a shame. RP Geek and RP Net. Let's have a look. See. Oh, RP Geek is well, that works still good, and RP Net. Yeah. Oh yeah, that works too. I mean, they are pretty. Yeah, story-games.com is no longer available, but the RPNet and RPGeek.com, they are still around. Very much game forums. Nice. Oh, in the months following the Enclave's official release, pre-made scenarios for the game with their own very ordeal tables will be made available. Oh, but that's not the case. I had a look. There wasn't any. That's a shame. I have wool on my read pile. Oh, cool. Nice, nice, nice. And then we've got game materials, so please feel free to make copies of these games for your own use in the game. So we've got establishment table. I've got all these things. Great. Well, let's have a quick look through. We're actually raced through this book. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, so the table itself is very bog standard sort of word made table. But you know what? Does the job, right? So what examples we've got here? So we've got number 1 here. We rolled a 1. The isolated ranch house of a dying millionaire and his quarrelling family. We've got a treehouse refugee where children hide from a zombie apocalypse. Oh, that could be quite fun. That could be quite exciting. What's number 14? Because that was talking about an ancient walled city-state besieged from the sea and land by barbarian foes. We have a hippie commune in the American wilderness harassed by the uncool. Oh no, society. Oh no, it's capitalists. Ooh, a community of termites trying to eat a house without being exterminated. That's quite interesting. That's different to what I was expecting. Ooh, and then here, number 20, the actual real-life players of the game fleeing the country in a beat-up RV. That's quite fun. Okay, so there's lots of different kinds of scenarios. I quite like those. For those with a Shudder subscription, the others just got added. Oh, hello, Nathan. Thank you so much. Yes. Oh, God, I used to have it way back when people had these things. I had it on DVD, the others. I really loved it as well. I like the Treehouse Refuge Zombie Apocalypse one. Yeah, I think that's quite fun. I'm always a big fan of, like, it's these zombies, but X, and it's different. And it's like, yeah, children. Again, making sure people, lines and veils and all that sort of thing, want to play children in that respect. Because again, if it's certainly the way you're playing it, it sounds like it could get quite tragic quite quickly. What else we got? We've got the top 2 floors of a skyscraper over a city run by rioters. Oh, that's like, oh, the film, no, the book, High Rise. It's like High Rise in a little way there. That could be quite fun. A warehouse full of government cheese, forcibly occupied by the homeless. Maybe again, like the unhoused, perhaps, or something that you've read about. Government. Oh wait, hang on. I've read that literally. Presumably, it's government officials rather than like actual cheese. Although now I think it could just be food based. I might have misread that one. Okay, so and then this is the disciple sheet. Sorry. So yeah, that's very basic, isn't it? In terms of stuff. Leader, yes, no. So yeah, so easily you could put this on a card and just rewrite the stuff. So yeah, the attitude to community: what? A spy for the outsiders, get me out of here, loyal but having second thoughts, submissive and obedient by nature, true believer zealot, anxious to purge all but the faithful. And then the attitude to outsiders: maybe they were right all along, nostalgic, missing a few individuals. We were like them once. No desire for any contact. Reconciliation is impossible. May they all die gruesomely. So I think this is interesting because you could be like spy for the outsiders, but then may all die gruesomely. So there's like interesting bits and pieces. I will say we have to be careful with like what we mean by outsiders, like the us versus them. I think that's the only thing. Maybe it should be a little bit of more of a safety note, being like it's not about the hate. It's just like difference, you know, and it's about like it's the fear of it and playing with that perhaps, rather than like we must destroy all of them. You know, is the only thing I'd say. The tables are a bit, how to say, silly or poorly written. It feels short. Yes, no, I agree with that. Government cheese is a flippant term usually used by folks on government assistance for government-supplied food or food rations. Oh, thank you, Brian. I did not know that. I appreciate the explanation there. How interesting. I've never come up with that, or never heard of that before. Maybe we've got different terms for that in the UK. And yeah, maybe the loyalty table. I think loyalty table does, but let's have a look. I think you're probably talking about the ordeals table, aren't you? Oh, I see. How interesting. So, when you're using the stickers, for the first time you use these ones, for the up to E, and then for I see. So then they go. That's what I was talking about before about them getting like more escalating as they go. So what we've got in that first chart there. Our leader gives some important news about his or her long-term intentions. Some unexpected benefactor bequeaths us an excessive quantity of some vital resource. A famous or influential outsider converts to our cause and joins our enclave. Well, that's quite fun. And then we receive a frightful threat from an outsider. Our leader makes a discovery that may prove crucial to our success. I think, well, again, from a quick look at this, again, having to play these through, I wonder if having them as vague as they are, perhaps, allows us to interpret them for lots of different scenarios. Again, presumably this is just the base game. If we were going to have lots of other scenarios, maybe there'd be more like specific like tables for it. So I don't think it's an issue. So I like the fact that there's different tables rather than rolling like on the same table constantly. I quite like that, and it's by turn, so you know the escalation is going to be there. But yeah, again, maybe if this was going to be redone, maybe the table should have been looked at a little bit more. Makes more sense than literal cheese. Well, I don't know, Evil Bread. I'm now thinking of an evil cheese like isolationist scheme anyway. They may also be referring to occupying the literal caves of cheese at the government stores. Amusingly, is that true, Nathan? Don't lie to me, because that is absolutely something I'm going to base a game on now. Like, I know. Obviously, there's big cheese factories and stuff, but actually storing cheese as like monetary wealth. You know, if we talk about like gold bars, Bitcoin, cheese. You know, like people buy like crates of wine to store, and that's why they have their money. There's a Wikipedia. No way. Oh no. Oh, so I'm so sorry, Brian. Here, I'll see if I can. I'll post that. Thank you. Let me put that in there. There you go, Brian. Sorry. Yeah, Nightbot's on you on that. Oh, even Nightbot's not having. Oh no, not Nightbot's having it. Okay, that's fine. Phew. I was like, Nightbot, please. It's processed cheese, provided to welfare beneficiaries. Oh, well, there you go. There you go. Alright, so I've lost my train of thought. Yep, the US stores a lot of cheese in limestone caves in Missouri. Well, sounds like a road trip. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. That's such a wild fact. Is there a particular reason for that, Nathan? Is it monetary value, or is it more like I guess you store it there, it's manufactured there? Interesting. Limestone caves. I guess, yeah, cooling, perhaps. What else we got here? So chart 3, we've got more peaceful and quiet. A member of our community mysteriously goes missing. 2 or more disciples form a basis of an intimate friendship. Right, so that's the sort of thing where we're like, hey, do we want to do this? And it's a lot of the storytelling stuff feels like it's more above board than the actual roleplay element of it, which is no problem. Again, we just want to flag that up in that session 0. And then we've got here chart P to T. Fight breaks out. 1 member defects to the outside. Our leader reveals a new controversial aspect of his or her plan for the future. Interesting. 2 members of our community fall in love. And then we've got the last one here. A deep rift develops within the community that can only be resolved through violence. The leader becomes unwell. And is it killing? A conflict that has arisen earlier is resolved, but not without anger. We receive a message that the outsiders may be prepared to leave us alone. Yeah, I think these are fine. These are very vague prompts that can help you. And I think if you're already a role player or an improviser, it could be easy. I think it's actually that's all you need. But if you're brand new to this, it might be a little bit tricky. So I think for certain, I think if I was playing with brand new people, I'd have a scenario already set and then having maybe go through these particular ordeal tables, which I do like the idea of, and tweak them specifically for this game and give them the option like, here, it could be this or it could be something similar. What do you think? But yes, absolutely tied to the same government cheese program mentioned in the Wikipedia. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. And then the Legend of Ordeals. Oh, this is not a... Okay, so it's just a timeline. Again, I like it. I like the idea. Again, I think you can make this a little bit nicer looking. It's trying to give you space to do it, but yeah, you'd print this all out. I actually wouldn't have this as a... I actually thought this would be more of a landscape than portrait, personally, because then you can have more like space to write, perhaps. But I like the fact they've got the optional outsider turn on there as well. Ooh, and then we've got the voting slips. It literally is the best storyteller of this game was. All right, let's look at these derangement and fantasy tables. So, levels 1 to 6. So, we go from the disciples' beliefs about the outside world are 100% sane and accurate. Then there's some signs of mild delusion and paranoia in the Enclave. Beliefs about threats from the outside become more exaggerated as the game progresses. Beliefs about the outside are entirely fictional, though with a basis in fact. The leader is smart but badly deluded and has total control over the beliefs of the disciples. Again, that's something you talk about. Again, that sort of like mind manipulation, emotional manipulation would come up as a safety tool. And the fear of the outside is 100% unfounded. The leader is completely insane. Well, we'll change the word of that. Probably out of their mind or... is, how would you're paranoid, I don't know, do something else about it. Idea to co-op with friends and tell a story is nice, but the writing not so much. Yeah, again, I think as you said, Evil Bread, it's clearly someone's first go. I actually, like, compared to some of the other RPGs we've read, I don't actually feel, I'm not like, oh god, this is off-putting. I actually am like, oh, I like the concept, easy enough, straightforward. I actually feel like it's one of those things where you could easily come up with your own scenario and talk to people about it. And it has all those elements, the tactile elements of like creating the map, the sticker thing. Yeah, I quite like it. It feels different enough and it feels simple enough to run off the ground. It doesn't take too much convincing, I guess. Especially if you've already played games like The Quiet Year, for example, or even maybe Dialect could be another thing as well. And the fantasy level, there's no magic, no technology available in the real world during the game's time period. There is some fictional but some scientific credible technology, so like flying cars. Unobtrusive magic such as invisibility, or improbable technologies such as ornithopters. Dune, there we go. Talking animals, teleportation, minor instances of divine providence. And then instant death spells, astral projection, mind reading, faster than light travel, omnipotent gods. And then total surrealism. If it can be described, it could possibly happen. Interesting, that feels very like Idris By vibes there, that surrealist element. And then we've got game terminology, as you need it. And then we've got playtest credits as well. Morningstar, Fiasco. Yeah, absolutely. So, and we've got John Harper, Lady Blackbird, Latest and Feelings, and The Quiet Year, all mentioned here as well. There you go. And that's it. That's the game. Interesting. Okay, that's a bit of a surprise. I might say leader is completely disconnected from reality. That's a much better way of putting it, Brian. Good job. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's go back then. So, what do we make of this game? I actually think, you know what? I think it's straightforward. When I saw 50 pages, I was like, it can't be 50 pages. It's not 50 pages. You can boil it down to a couple, but I think it's spread out. Like, we read 50 pages in like just over an hour. Yeah, over an hour with me vamping a little bit at the beginning. I think it's straightforward enough. I like the idea. I think it's a very encouraging thing. I think it's a good basis to then create your own scenarios off. I think those initial 20 ones are interesting enough to get you started. It's a shame that there's not more examples out there, especially as we talked about that, having maybe more specific ordeal tables. That would be really cool, I think. I like the options. I like the option to have the outsider's turn. I think that's really interesting and really fun. I guess, yeah, you don't have the sticker with that, according to Legend of Oracles. And those sheets, they're very basic. They're not necessarily like they're formatted as for efficiency and practicality rather than like, look at this really cool sheet. So maybe, again, I maybe would think about making it look nicer, but then at the same time, it doesn't need to be. And all of this, as we sort of said, it could be done online as well. Again, this was written before the pandemic, so maybe this wouldn't have been online as much. But I see it like I like the idea of doing it in person. I also like the idea of doing it online. I think that it feels easy enough to do so. I think that, again, the big changes I've put to this is having a little bit about safety and stuff like that, because these sort of games, that was the touchstone I was thinking of was The Village, the Midnight Shyamalan film, which I really rate. It's not aged very well, I will say. There's some depictions there by, say, Adrian Brody, not so good. But that whole story about an isolated village being attacked by monsters, really, it fits this so well, actually, now that I think about it. So yeah, and you can have a lot of different genres, like from the comedic to the tragic to the horror for this, and the dramatic as well. And yeah, Walking Dead, obviously, that's the other thing as well. The Village is a good call. I would play this game. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, again, when I come to these things, I go, why did I pick up this game? Thirdly, someone was like, hey, have you heard of this game? And then I've got, no, and then I got it. So yeah, so please. Oh, Among Us. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, anything with the Among Us, that's so true. Hang on, let me... Oh, I can't... I mean, the thing... Well, no, but the Among Us, again, being stuck in a small space, something's... I guess it's yeah, something is trying to get in from outside and then questioning other people's integrity and also commitment to stuff. But yeah, the thing, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there's the link again to the Drive-Thru RPG. It's £5 to get the PDF if you want the book. I don't think you need the book personally. I think, you know, all the stuff in it is stuff you could absolutely create yourself. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I would also play this. I think it's you know what? I think the timing of it as well, because that's one thing I really like about it. Is that you say stuff in short sentences, no more than 5 minutes for that ending monologue. So things are timed and structured really well. So it sets that expectation that it's not going to be a very long game. It's maybe a bit more. You maybe need to be on your feet a little bit more. Like you need to be like a little bit prepared to be like improving a little bit more. But I like it. I think it's different to anything else I've played. Sort of that is map making or world building. And again, this is the sort of game you could make. This is the sort of story you can make, and then you take the story and use it in other games. You're like, well, what happened to the settlement here, etc. And you're like, oh well, and then you can tell the story of that, of what happened, because you've already played it. So I really like this game. I love how Drive-Thru RPG tells me that I already own something, like I did this game. Well, hey, I'm glad that you've got it. I'm glad you can go and try it out, Brian. So that's all very good. All right, friends, let's go back to Big Fiona Face. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, a little bit short. Oh, are you off, Fancy Alice? Oh, big stretch. Oh, you can't see her, but she's big stretch. There we go. Bye. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. If you've enjoyed this, come check out What Am I Rolling? It is a twice monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast where we do lots of different RPG systems and interviews with game designers. We're on the One Shot Network. It's quite exciting. We have, what was I going to say? We have a game coming out called Under the Autumn Strangely on Sunday, which again is an unusual game. Maybe I'll cover it at some point. Oh, bless you, Fancy Alice. And that is all about sort of like cooperating and collaborating with people, and it's all sort of, again, token based, but it's also sort of like you're listening to each other and adding to it, very improv-y, and also autumnal horror, which is great for for just beginning of the new year, huh? But yeah, so I'm looking forward to putting that out. That'd be good. We've also got there's a small spider on my tea there. Oh no. We've also got some game designers. We've got some live streams coming up in the new year. I just need to confirm a few bits and pieces, but that's very exciting. Looking forward to that. I have that game, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Sorry for late wishes. Not at all, my friend. This is the first stream back. Nice to have you here, Evil Bread. And I have that game. I'm excited to check it out. Check your playthrough out. Oh, great. No, it was very. You'll see if and when you listen to it. It's very different to any sort of game I've played on Web4. We're very lucky. We had the game designer actually run it for us, Graham Gent, and they very kindly brought some friends as well to play it with me, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was one of the best things we did together. That I had no idea what it was going to be when we went in, and we had a really good time. So I'm not hyping it up too much, but it was very interesting, and stuff that I love in sort of improvised things. So it's not like what's it saying, your usual sort of like thinking out D&D, chess, Monopoly. There's examples. But it was fun, and I would recommend checking it out for sure. So yeah, when that comes out on Sunday, I'll do all the posts. If you're like Fiona, I don't care for this. Talk more about D&D, and like, okay, well, we've got the DM's Book Club as well. It is a weekly book club podcast where we talk about some Dungeons & Dragons and discuss how we might include them in our role-playing campaigns. We have a really fun one coming out. We just did our second Drizzt episode that just came out at the time of recording yesterday, which is basically going through slowly Drizzt novels as sort of an actual book club. I recommend them. They're quite fun. But then next week we've got the wonderful Shahig from the One Shot Network coming on to talk about artisan tools and how to make them better in your games and stuff like that. And it's something that I'd not considered, and it was a really good, fun conversation. I need to finish editing that out today, actually. So yeah, go check those out. And the final little bit of good news is that, again, I appreciate people might not follow me on all the different channels and stuff like that, but I can, for the first time, announce on here that I am part of the RP Geeks now. The wonderful Sharmony and Emily over at RP Geeks were like, they need another RP Geek, and they asked me, and I'm like, absolutely. So yeah, I am joining the RP Geeks for this year, well, from this year on onwards, and it was going to be absolutely great. We've got some great plans. We're coming back end of January, beginning of February. I can't remember the date exactly off the top of my head, but we've got some cool, exciting one-shots that have been prepped. I'm prepping my first campaign as an official RP Geek, running it in end of March, and I'm excited. I'm very excited. It's using a system that I've not ran before. I've played in it. I won't give too much away because otherwise I'll be told off for spoilers. But yeah, come check out RP Geeks. That's RP Geeks D&D on Twitch, and RP Geeks all over the internet, wherever you're on social and stuff like that. I'll get a hotkey set up at some point for that. Nice. Hang on. Thanks for the stream. Oh, thanks, Dead Two for us. Nice to have you here, my friend. Nathan says, somewhat related to this game, you may be interested in community radio. A very improv-y, welcome to Night Vale, time limits, excited to hear. Just awesome, strangely. I actually have community radio. I bought it before Christmas. You know what, Nathan? I will absolutely put that up as a too long didn't read. Let me make a note of that. I would also say that as well. If anyone has any suggestions for too long didn't read, I've filled out most of January just now, but I'm always interested in more, and often than not, I might actually have it like I do with community radio. So thank you for that. Excited to hear Autumn Strangely Fantastic. Remember, peeps, to like the video if you haven't. It helps a lot. Oh, thank you, Dead Toothbrush. More RPGs. Oh my glob. Very pleased to hear it. Yes, no, thank you. No, I really love RP Geeks. It's silly and fun. I actually ran the Christmas special. We did a roll for shoes, which I absolutely did get the rules wrong for it, but it was good fun and silly, and yeah. So it's nice to do some more TTRPG stuff. So yeah, come check out RP Geeks and come and see the new stuff that we've got at the end of January. There'll be some Blood on the Cocktail streams there as well. What the final thing? I should always look up what we've got next, because I've got like I said, I've got a whole January of Too Long Didn't Reads now, which is very exciting. That's not the right tab. Let me find you. Where is it? Happening now. All right. Okay, so next Tuesday for another Too Long Didn't Read, we've got Hopes and Dreams of the Orbital Bound, which is I interviewed Craig. What's their last name? I can't remember off the top of my head. Interviewed them on the DM's book, Where a little while ago. I really like their games. I really like their science. It very much is if you've read A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, it's those kind of vibes, that particular game, so that'll be fun. And then next Thursday we've got Into the Odd. We're going to run into the Odd. We're going to read Into the Odd, which a lot of people I think are going to be excited about. It's a sort of OSR hex crawl type game, but it's beautifully been remastered and is now published with Free League, and has a new art by Johan Noor, so that'd be all very exciting. Yeah, that's all I have. Sorry, I usually end these things a bit better, but I'm just going like, what else am I doing? It's still early January, but thank you so much, friends. I appreciate everyone hanging out, chatting with me about TTRPGs. I hope this was interesting. Like I said, like I do this because it's a mixture of helping me learn to read out loud properly, even though my pronunciations are rubbish, but also learning new games. I really think, yeah, I think ultimately the Enclave is something I would love to run. Maybe as an off, I think I'd do it off content and just see how that works, because I think it'd be really great as a world building thing. So yeah, very good. All right, my friends, I will love you and leave you. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday for another Too Long Didn't Read. Fantastic book, Into the Odd. Thanks for the stream. Yes, no, it's one of those books which I have not read properly, so I'm looking forward to reading it. So but it's getting better. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All right, friends. Mwah. Stay safe, have a good weekend, and I'll see you shortly.